right, well, we got a little bit more presentation to go before we get you to lunch. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our damage reporting and additional call before you dig resources that we have available for you guys. So in terms of reporting damages, PURA receives and reviews utility damage violations reports monthly. So any violation that's reported to us, and any damage is required to be filed to us within 30 days of an incident. And then we take those, we take that information and then we review all the information, the photos. We also take a look to see if there's any excavator report that goes with it, because sometimes when we have a report from a utility, the excavator has also filed a report with us. So we review both reports, get an idea of what took place, and then we decide what type of an enforcement action to take. Whether it's, if the utility is at fault, civil penalty for a utility, we do hold them to a very high standard. And then for excavators, usually our first thing to do is usually a warning letter, or we want to, offer training and education to help to avoid future issues. And then generally after that, excavators are not required to report to PURA. Utilities are required, but we do strongly encourage it, as it gives us a really good idea of what took place on the day of an incident. And it's always good to have both sides of the story when you're reviewing a damage, because, in terms of us putting out an enforcement action, we want to make sure we have the best information available and that we're making the right decision. So we have an online damage reporting tool. It's off the Call Before You Dig website. So you go to this link. You'll find it in the resources tab for Call Before You Dig. And then you can go to register for the other site, which is called Damage Access. And that is our violation and damage reporting tool. So this is what it kind of looks like from a report. I've kind of blocked some of the name out there. So it looks like, it was an SEG report, so Southern Connecticut Gas. So you can just clearly see we got all the information from the utility name, the information of who's filing it. Just make sure all that information is up to date. And then, we have information on what was the affected utility, the type of facility, and where it was damaged. So we can clearly see here. Then the excavator information is put in. So the excavator can put, the utility filing this report will put in the excavator information so that we have all the necessary contact information in order to reach out to that excavator if they are going to receive an enforcement action. And then we have the damage details. This is pretty important as well. You want to put as much description and information that you can on what took place on the day of a damage. And then, we have our listed cause of violation. Where did the damage take place? So this one says it took place in the private right-of-way. And this damage was in the East Hartford as well. So the date, the time, the facility type that was damaged, was it a service line, was it a main? All that information is really good. You can also put in GPS coordinates of where that damage was as well. So these are all really good information to have. It helps us pinpoint the area where the damage took place. And then damage impact. We really reviewed this as well in terms of damage impact. We want to know, was there an interruption of service? Was there any road closures? Was there any, how many customers were affected? Because that can also affect how we handle our enforcement as well. Like if we go back to the whole Loomis Chafee thing, that story where he shut off Windsor's gas pretty much, that's going to be a lot of people affected. And that's going to be taken in consideration based on the severity of that damage and what took place. So we're very much, we want to see that information. And, if there's any evacuations or if anyone was hurt, we wanted to, that information should be put in there as well. And then also one of the most important parts, yes, we talked about a lot about, taking photos, before and after photos of excavation, trying to maintain your marks as well. You can actually put in video and even pictures and video in here in this section as well. So we review that information, compare them. So if you're an excavator filing with us, we will compare those photos with the photos from the utility company. And really good photos are the best way to show what happened on the day of an incident. So we all have our cell phones. For photo and video, use a measuring tape to show how far away from the marks or how close to the marks the damage was. And we also have what's called hit kits as well. So as we can see down here, this is what a hit kit looks like. I have one in my car that I utilize that you can clearly use to show proper measurements, what measurements, how close or how far away a mark was to the actual facility. The goal is to demonstrate what took place at the time of the damage and best show the area where that damage took place. So we can pinpoint it, review it, and compare it to any other reports that are related to it. So as you can see here, this is a gentleman using a hit kit. This was actually a report that we received from an excavator. They were digging for water valve replacements. And then when they came across a communication mark, they dug away from the communication mark, and they ended up pulling a telecom line. So this, I believe, was a Frontier line. And as you can clearly see, he's got the measurement out from the mark, 30 inches off the mark. That is outside the tolerance zone. So, we determined that, there was a locator error. Ultimately, what really happened on this was that there was something really wrong with that section of telecom line, that it couldn't actually be marked. You couldn't get the signal on it. So we decided to take no action on that with regards to the utility and the excavator. Obviously, the excavator was not at fault to begin with, so we wouldn't be doing that. Over here, we can clearly see to the left, this is for a gas damage, and you can clearly see there's the hit kit again, clearly showing us, how close or how far that is from the mark. This is a little closer. Ultimately, this one ended up being a records issue. While there was a mark here, it was not really related to that. That's some of the photos we do get. And it's always good to make sure, you're very much in line with your hit kit when you're taking a photo. Clearly showing where that mark is and how far away it was from that facility, or how close. And then over here, as we can clearly see, another example of a hit kit as well. Clearly showing that it's pretty far away from the mark is pretty far away there from the damaged location as well. So, and also, you can utilize your hit kit and measuring tapes to show depth. If you really think that it was a very shallow facility that you hit, and you're saying, hey, I filled up the asphalt and service came up right with it. So that happens more often than you think. But you can utilize all these information to kind of show us what took place, what were you dealing with at the time that caused that damage. And then also, always be cognizant of any faded marks. And this is also just to say, when you're trying to maintain your marks, and you're trying to keep refreshing marks for your spotter, a lot of times when you get that dirt, sand, and dirt, especially during the summer when it's hot and everything's really dry, marks will not only fade, but they will also get covered with a lot of dirt, and they can kind of fade with that. But if you pour some water on it, sweep the area, you can clearly show where the mark was. So in this case, you can see there's the hit gas line. Excavator at the time said there wasn't a mark, but we swept the spoils aside and then poured some water on it. You could see that mark a lot better. So, obviously, if it's a dangerous situation, sparking electric, blowing gas, I wouldn't be taking videos and photos of it up close or anywhere that. You want to clear the area, obviously, first and make sure the area is safe before doing a damage investigation. Allow the gas company to isolate that gas line and secure it for safety. Make sure the damaged facility is clearly visible when you're taking a photo and you're aligned up with the damaged facility when taking photos. Taking photos from different angles can really affect how visually it looks, either if it was marked correctly or outside the tolerance zone. If you come in from an angle like this, I might see it closer to the 18-inch line. If I go right over it, we'll actually clearly see that it was actually, within the tolerance zone. We actually had that happen where there was a damage report to us, and the excavator received a fine. The excavator contested that damage, and then just showed clearly in the photos that, the utility company's photos was actually taken on a bit of an angle, making it seem like it was in the tolerance zone. But clearly, their overhead photos of it clearly showed that it was outside the tolerance zone. Sometimes, we really get close to that. The line can be really close to the tolerance zone on 18 inches of either side. So it was more like, 19 inches away. Additionally, photos showing the area leading up to the damage, showing your pre-mark area, your whole work area, your site area, is really good to help us figure out where a damage took place. Sometimes I've had back and forth between utility companies and excavators contesting damages because they couldn't, they kept showing pictures from other locations on the job site. And ultimately, we were able to find out where exactly that damage was, and we had to do a little searching on Google Maps and stuff like that. So doing Street View can help a lot, and that helps us get an idea of what took place. And sometimes even on Street View, we can catch markouts. During the summer, a lot of times that Google Street View car will go by, and we'll actually see updated marks from active tickets where contractors have contested the damage, but we can clearly see, yes, this line was properly marked in July, and you did your work during that time frame, and there's your vehicle right there. So it's pretty funny what you can find, but you want to make sure the location is verified. Even getting GPS coordinates, you can get an app on your phone for free, plug a GPS coordinate or get it from Google Maps, and that can help us verify where that damage is. Make sure, as I said before, make sure the area is safe when taking photos. You don't want to be using your cell phone, you're blowing gas or anything like that. You want to make sure you clear the area, and then, once the gas has been secured, then you take your photos. So some examples of poor documentation we received. So while this might be a good photo to get an idea of where a damage was, you can clearly see, I can't see any marks, I can't see any color. It's very pixelated. So as you can clearly see, it's extremely pixelated. I can barely even see the hit kit, actually. I don't know if that says mark or damage. It's probably damage because the lettering's a little larger. But I can't see any measurements, can't see anything. That's not going to help me make a determination at all. Maybe this would be a situation where we ask for clarification in photos from the utility company or from the excavator. And then we would honestly probably, if we can't find any, we might not take any action on this. But if something did happen and something was damaged and somebody was at fault for the damage, we would like to make sure through our enforcement actions that we're trying to promote education and safety when excavating. This is an example from a USIC photo from us here. We got they obviously showed up a little late after the road has already been paved over, and they tried to put a mark. They tried to say the mark was there, and they put a damage marker there as well. This gives us no information. This is a really bad example of a damage report from a utility company. We really want to see the actual facility visible, because how would this ever hold up on a legal basis? Let's say the utilities sent you a bill, you're going to fight it in civil court. This photo is going to come up and probably win the civil court battle, is my guess, because this is all conjecture. Who's to say that the facility is actually there? The road's paved over. We really want to visibly see that facility. So PURA has the authority to assess penalties for any violation of the regulations. We consider a lot of factors when we go over on this decision making. And a lot of them I've talked about before, but it's the number and nature of past violations. Generally, we look back anywhere 2 to 3 years. The amount of damage to utilities. So if you hit like a small cable line, we're going to handle that differently than when you jackhammered into a 54-inch water transmission line. We're going to handle those things very differently, and obviously you can tell because of the degree of threat to the public safety. A hit gas line is going to be more dangerous than a hit cable line or a hit copper coax cable line. And then degree of public inconvenience: was there evacuations? Was there outages? How many people were affected by this damage? Because when we're talking about call before you dig, we're talking about safety for everybody. It's safety for you guys out there doing the work, safety for the utilities that are operating underground, and it's safety for the public too. So in keeping with all that, we definitely take account for how did this affect public safety, and then any other degree of inconvenience. If a 130-person building gets evacuated, we're going to handle that as a much more serious event than it was just a single homeowner that was not home. There was no evacuations, and then the threat level was low. We also look at good faith efforts to comply with regulations. That includes, we have training online. I also do in-person training as well. So a lot of times contractors will have me come out to speak with them in person. Yesterday I did three presentations in one day, hopped around between Meriden and Portland. Giving out as much good information as I can to help people dig safely out there. So we look at that. We look at if you have plans and procedures to ensure compliance. We think about GPL talking about their utility checklist. Those are proper plans and procedures to comply with our regulations. And it's really those types of steps and good steps make it aware to us that you are trying to not damage anything. Nobody wants to damage anything, obviously. But when you're doing that next step effort, it really shows, and we do take notice of that. And then obviously circumstances beyond control of the violator. Oftentimes, if you're working on private residential property, you get a mark out and it's the middle of the summer and everyone's cutting their lawn. Some homeowner might be like, I don't want these flags on my yard. I hate paint on my yard, and just rips them all up and walks away. And then you go to dig there and you end up hitting a utility. That'd be something that'd be out of your control. Or if you're working alongside another contractor, they destroy the marks, or they put an offset mark and they measured it wrong. That's another thing that's outside of your control, and PURA will take account for that as well. So just kind of breaking down some of our penalties for the last 3 years. We can clearly see that based off these numbers, we really hold the utility companies to a higher standard because we basically usually will fine for pretty much every mismark that happens. So anytime we have a damage reported to us and it's a locator error, generally we will assess a civil penalty to that utility company. And then obviously for excavators, like I said, we go through the steps. We look at the last 3 years. We see how much work you're doing. We see your efforts to comply with regulations. Generally, as you can see, some of the numbers have gone up over the years, but generally we always are issuing a lot more civil penalties to the utility companies for mismarks and other issues. Just going over some additional resources. So under our callbeforeyoudig.com at damage reporting, we went through that whole thing about damage access and all the different checkboxes you got to go through and all the information you got to put in. Well, we actually have a paper formatted one that should not be submitted to PURA, but you can use it in the field to write all that information down, and it goes step by step through similarly how the damage access reporting system goes. So you can actually print this out, keep these worksheets in your car, in your work vehicle, or in the in the backhoe, and then you can actually utilize that, get all that information down. Then you have all that information for you, so then you can file that information with us on damage access. And also we have another running series of resources that we have them producing called Toolbox Talks. So these are actual real situations that have taken place in Connecticut. And this goes through what went wrong, what was the underlying rule, what took place at the day of the incident, what was the excavator doing, what are the reasonings behind PURA's decision. So we talk about, what did we do? Did we issue a warning letter? Did we issue a civil penalty? Did we have them require mandatory training? So we go through the whole scenario, we talk about what went wrong, what were the lessons learned, what should have been done. And so clearly this one actually, this specific damage is actually to a MDC 54-inch, I think it was 54-inch transmission water main that ran alongside and crossed underneath 84. We were actually very close to almost having 84 washed out by that transmission line. But luckily the damage wasn't that severe, and we were able to, MDC was able to resolve the issue. It took a lot of repair work, but it was a very tense situation. It's the only time I've ever been walking physically on 84. But we have a lot of these. I think there's about 13 of them up on the webpage now. So if you ever have a down day, rainy day, that you want to have a safety topic or anything like that, you can definitely feel free to download these, utilize them, and discuss with your crew what took place. And just say, hey, this is stuff that's actually happening in Connecticut now. And you can do something, learn about from it, and then avoid these situations and issues and learn from other people's mistakes. And then also, we have an online education training system. It goes through a lot of the stuff, but in like more of an OSHA-style quiz course thing. And it takes about an hour and a half to complete. It's called Education Access. And we also have it fully translated into Spanish as well. So you can find this at cyd.com/excavator. It's a really good tool. Also, if you have new employees that you've just hired that are not familiar with the excavation process, or with call before you dig, or with digging around utilities, you can have them take this course. We've gotten a lot of good feedback on it throughout the years. A lot of people are utilizing it, especially for newer employees, onboarding them. And then also you can get a nice certificate at the end, saying that you completed the course. I know the Call Before You Dig board has also been working with giving out plaques and promoting your company when you have most of your employees, if not all, take that online course. I know we've had a few excavators that have their entire company take it, and they really they gave us good feedback from the course, and we ended up going down there, giving them a plaque, thank you for being a safe digging partner. So there's always something to consider. A little more education never hurts. We're always trying to learn new things every day.